the next instalment. And who will it be? Who will it be today then? Well, I know. So let's get Andy on here. Here it is. Hopefully that's loading up. There he is.
Yes, mate.
How are you?
Good, thanks. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Lockdown in the UK, as it is.
Yeah, same here, mate.
Is that what it's like, Vancouver?
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty similar. I don't think we have quite as many restrictions, but it's strange times. Nobody's really out and about, very quiet in the city. So, yeah, hopefully we find our ways, a way to get through this pretty soon.
I hope so, mate, because it's killing the old the sport, isn't it, mate? And I know from what you were talking about the other day, your season literally just kicked off.
Yeah, two matches in at the moment. So, man, life is boring without football, isn't it? So, hopefully, like I said, hopefully some point early in the summer or whatnot, we can find a way to at least get the players back on the pitch, and then at some point, obviously, get the fans in the stadium. So, it's it's just obviously such strange times for all of us at the moment.
Yeah, there you go. Stanners is already jumping in there, Andy. Play up you Sky Blue Army. I know what questions he's going to ask you, mate. All I was going to do, mate, was just going to ask you. Loads of the lads have got different questions and bits and pieces. We're just going to start with a little bit about, obviously the type 1 diabetes, talk about the football as well. And then get into some interesting questions that have been asked. Well, the lads have chipped in with and said, "Can you ask Andy this? I'm well interested in this," and so we'll get to those as well. So I wanted to start with really your story of diagnosis, because you've got quite an interesting one that is, I suppose, dissimilar to most, I would say.
Yeah, it was, like probably most of the people watching this, obviously when you get diagnosed, it's total shock to the system, changes your whole world. And, in that instant, mine was no different for sure. I was 26 at the time. I was in my second season at Coventry. It was in December of 2016. And yeah, for the whole week, I wasn't quite feeling myself, really lethargic, struggling through training a bit, just tired. And we were playing Oxford United at home, I think on the Saturday, normal training week and whatnot. And went into the game. I probably played 65, 70 minutes. And then all of a sudden, I literally just cramped up everywhere, like my calves, my hamstrings, my quads, everything just kind of seized up at once. It was bizarre. And, I very rarely get cramp. And so obviously I knew something was going wrong. And throughout the week, I'd had little inklings that, I don't feel quite right. So I pulled myself off. And I actually had my cousin's wedding in London that night. So my best mate was in the crowd, and somehow I had to get all the way to London. So we drove to London, went to the wedding. I was with all my family and just kind of explained to them, something's not quite right here. And drove back home on the Sunday, spoke to our team doctors, and got into hospital on the Monday morning just to get some blood tests done. And sure enough, blood test wise, things looked all right. And then all of a sudden the nurse just says, "Let me just check your blood sugar." Just pricked my finger, and it was just through the roof. I think at the time it was like, I can't even remember the number. I think it's 21 or 22. It was high. Yeah. And so she kind of said, "Look, do you know much about diabetes?" And my wife's sister, has had type 1 since she was about 15. And so, because of her, I knew certain things, but I guess people don't really know all the right questions to ask. So when I look back on, before I had diabetes and speaking to her and stuff, I never really understood it. I knew she had it, and I knew her routine and what she had to do and give herself insulin. I knew everything she had to do, but I didn't really understand it all. And so she was my first phone call, and I had to kind of get a quick crash course. So, I look at it like I was, I suppose, fortunate to get it later on in life when I was an adult and could kind of take care of myself. I can only imagine how difficult it is for, now I've got a son of my own. That diagnosis from a parent standpoint would be so much harder.
Yeah, no, and obviously I was diagnosed as an 8-year-old, so I kind of I know that feeling of what it's like to go through it as a kid, teenage years. It's a challenge, but at the same time, I don't really remember life without it. So I also think, as much as you say as an adult, it might you've been blessed to live 26 years without it. I think at the same time, there's a bit comes with bits and pieces which are going on that you're working on, which is great. And that's, as people that are living with it, they just love to see stuff like that. Love to see that, you've got someone like yourself, Andy, that's trying to make a difference.
No, that's good to hear, mate. I appreciate that. Obviously, there's not a ton of professional athletes, I suppose, who are type 1s. And, a good friend of mine, Jordan Morris, is a US national team player. And he was in the academy system when I was playing for Seattle Sounders a few years ago. And he was another one of my first phone calls, just because he was the only professional athlete I knew. And similar to yourself, he was diagnosed when he was a kid. But just having him to kind of look up to and have a bit of inspiration, and my mindset was at the time was, how is this going to affect my career? How is it going to affect my football? And just speaking to him and knowing that, if anything, like I try and say, it's helped him along the way, and at no point has it affected his ambition and what he's been able to do in the game. That gave me massive belief that I could do the same thing. And then from afar, I've followed guys like Henry Slade, and it's just, it's cool to see guys at the very top like that, thriving, doing so well in their careers. So if I can be a very small part of that for other people to be a little bit of inspiration, then that's amazing.
Yeah, Calvin's put about, he's in the comments, spot on, Andy, same approach for myself. It adds a lot more organisation and puts you in the zone sport-wise. Khalid, top lads. Robbie Bruce again, what a guy Andy is. Makes me proud to be diabetic. So, yeah, big words. But I think that's what it comes down to as well, is that people are looking for positivity, because, as you quite rightly said there's some real big challenges around living with the condition, how it can psychologically affect you. You talked there about the worry about how it could affect your career, kids growing up, how they can fit in. There's a lot of psychological worry about it. There's obviously the physiological worries and how it can actually affect your body. And seeing examples like yourself where you can just go, well, it's clearly not affecting Andy. And I'd love to hear what people are saying, in terms of your actual performances. I wonder if it's gone up a notch. I wonder if you've got better since you've been diabetic.
I hope so. Maybe that's just partly down to experience as well. But
yeah,
no, I feel great. And obviously, since my days at Coventry, I went to Motherwell and had an amazing 18 months there, and was part of a really special group. We did some great things together. And then the opportunity to come back to MLS was presented, and it's been awesome. And we actually started the season really well. We just beat the LA Galaxy away 1-0, which was a great result for us. So for the season to be cut short at that point was obviously tough, because we felt like we were in a great spot as a team. But like we talked about before, fingers crossed that will get sorted. It shows you that there's much bigger and more important things in life than football. And during this time, if there's some young type 1s who are maybe struggling with, without playing so much, and how to get out and exercise and things to do to make sure the numbers aren't spiking at all and things like that. Obviously, it's been really cool this past year to be able to to have some kids out to the training grounds, to have some kids out to our games, connect with them, talk to them about their experiences with type 1. And that's certainly something I'd love to do more of moving forward.
Yeah, I saw the other day. I think I read your last Instagram post, and you were talking about Type 1 United, something you've just started linked to the club, Whitecaps.
Yeah, no, it's something I'm excited about. Basically, it's as long as the season gets back on track, we have 17 home matches. So each home match week, Diabetes Canada will help me kind of bring a kid who's been newly diagnosed, always just a big football fan. I'll provide them with 4 tickets to the match for themselves and their family. They'll also have the chance to come out to training during the week and watch a session and just kind of be around the guys. And, we'll obviously talk about their experience with type 1. And then at the end of the week, they'll get to bring their family to the match. They'll get to come onto the pitch, sort of post-game and have a chat. And they'll actually be presented to the crowd before the match as well, which, the Whitecaps have been amazing in organising all that for me, and I'm very grateful for that. We had our home opener against Kansas City a few weeks ago, and a little man about 9 years old was down on the pitch with me, which was really cool. So yeah, that's another thing to look forward to when football's back.
Yeah, no, I saw it and I thought that looks brilliant, and I'd seen a number of initiatives that you'd started and things you were talking about on social media. We'd message back and forth about them, and yeah, everything that you're trying to do alongside your career at the moment to help people with type 1 diabetes is obviously massively important. It obviously goes hand in hand with the work that I try and do with the diabetes football community. And like I said to you earlier, the profile you've got an amazing opportunity to help kids. Because I know when I was growing up, I go back to when I was 8 or 9, I'd have been, desperate for the chance to meet somebody else that was in the game, that was, the game that I loved playing, who's a professional, to be able to have, that role model, to be able to, the visible role model. Because I feel like, and I don't know how you feel about it, but obviously football sport, it's quite an elitist thing. And when you've got maybe what's perceived as a chink in your armour with, having a medical condition, I don't know whether you feel that it's looked upon in any particular way. Because that was the fear that I had growing up, was that actually I'd be viewed differently when it came to things like team selections or being picked in squads and stuff like that. So I don't know if you feel that. Obviously, this is a little bit different for you because you were already a pro when you were diagnosed, but I don't know how you feel about the acceptance of diabetes within sport.
Yeah, it's a great question. I can totally understand your experiences. I'm always quick to remind people that, I was diagnosed. I know that there's obviously a lot of people like me who were diagnosed a little bit later in life. But obviously, I didn't have the same sort of experiences you had. But without a doubt, when I was diagnosed, at the time playing for Coventry, obviously it was a really tough few months after that. And certainly something went through my mind was, okay, when I go to a new club, is that going to be something they look at? Is it going to be a negative? And to be honest, it hasn't at all. After Coventry, I moved to Motherwell, and it came up in my medical. And obviously, I've been, I'm quick to ensure with the physios, because obviously they need to prepare for me a little bit differently than everyone else. And the same thing happened here in Vancouver. It's no problem. What do you need? Okay, we can get that for you. You just basically need some snacks or a bar on the side of the pitch every training day and every match. And then at halftime, they check in with me on my numbers and whatnot. But with technology nowadays, I use the Freestyle Libre, and at halftime, I'm able to check my blood sugar quickly and easily. And I'm able to manage it very easily. Without a doubt, I can understand why, if you're 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever, growing up and you have aspirations to be a professional one day, you might think, is this going to hold me back? I want to go into coaching when I'm done playing. and some of the best coaches I've had, and certainly something I want to be as a coach is to look at players from a mentality standpoint, maybe what they've had to overcome in their lives, because that just makes you even more solid as a pro. If you've gone through some sort of adversity, it makes you mentally tough and mentally strong, which, being a professional athlete, you have to be incredibly mentally tough because there's so many highs and lows, ups and downs. So honestly, for a young diabetic going through the game and having to deal with checking your blood sugar and, keeping your numbers in range, that's a really difficult thing to do. It's difficult for a 30-year-old to do, let alone for a 10, 11-year-old to do. So if you've learned that responsibility from a young age, it's honestly only going to help you as you progress and get older, and hopefully more and more coaches with the stuff you're doing specifically, and more people hearing about it, and maybe more professional athletes with type 1 diabetes. The more it's kind of heard about, the more people understand it's not something that's going to really, taper your performance in any way.
Yeah, and I think it's key, obviously, and that was one of the key reasons which led me to create the diabetes football community. And I'm sure it's probably one of the lead reasons in your mind why you do the things you do, is because you're fully aware that the challenges that are there for people to get involved in sport, and they need people to, within sport, to be showing it's possible and to talk about it openly, to make the doors open. Because if nobody shares or nobody talks about their experiences within different sporting environments whilst living with the condition, people are not going to think that it is possible. So it's really one of the lead reasons I did what I did with the diabetes football community, is because of that experience that I'd had growing up, and then going into the adult game from non-league football, Wales futsal, whatever it was. And then it's important to have people like yourself doing it from within the pro game, because it can change things. Without that, you struggle to make change, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the work you're doing is far and away greater than what I'm doing. I mean, it's incredible, the initiatives and the diabetes football community. It's really cool to watch from afar, and certainly something I'm excited to get more involved in. We had last season in Vancouver, we brought about 40 young diabetics to the training ground for just kind of a day where they got to watch training, be around the group, and then have lunch with everyone. And they brought all their families along. It was an awesome day. And we kind of all went around the room and talked about our experiences. And this one little, he must have been 10 or 11. And, he mentioned that in school he gets bullied, for his glucose monitor and stuff. And that just really, that killed me, obviously, because like we talked about already, I never went through that stage. When you're an adult and you get it, things are very different than when you're a kid. And so that really made me aware of all of that side of it, and how challenging that side mentally it can be for a young person. So without a doubt, I think that the things you're doing, being a real leader in the community, is incredible. I try and throughout the season, I'll certainly be trying to do my bit here in Vancouver, and fingers crossed that spreads, that continues to spread.
Yeah, I appreciate it, mate. And obviously it's been a big part of what I've been trying to do. Obviously, I've been linking in with you as much as I can in the last few years to, as soon as I knew you were, obviously type 1, I try and reach out as much as I can to the pros, former pros, just to see if we, because as I said to you, it makes a massive difference if there's somebody there showing it can be done when you're trying to talk about making change. And that's what the diabetes football community is there to do. It's to try and support people, but drive change at the same time, and improve the experiences of people within football. And, having people to look at like yourself to be able to do it and have that support is always hugely important. So definitely loads of stuff we can do in the future. One day, hopefully, I'll get to come and watch you play a game, and I'll come out, and hopefully wherever you are, I'll try and find a way. Canada's got a link with me, so if you stay there for a few years, there's a chance that I can come out to have a look for sure. But yeah, I just want to roll back to some of your go to your football career a little bit, just to ask you a few things, because there's a few Sky Blues fans that are on here that I know as well that are wanting to ask a couple of things about that experience, because obviously that was when you were diagnosed as well.
Yeah.
So we can start with Cov, because it's around your diagnosis, and we'll flick flat between the two, because I want to hear a little bit about how that first sort of translation of diagnosis into back playing sort of went for you, and what this experience was like in Coventry, playing for the Sky Blues.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. I just come off, I'd spent 4 years with Seattle Sounders in MLS, and kind of wanted to move back home, be closer to my family and whatnot. I just got married, and Coventry at the time were flying, and so the first 6 months were incredible. Players like Adam Armstrong and James Madison, Joe Cole, Jack Stevens, John Fleck, Sam Ricketts. It was an incredible
players, and that some real really players you're talking about there.
Yeah, no, Premier League players, and some of the best, one of the best groups I've ever played with, without doubt. It was so much fun coming into that. So I came into that group mid-season, and yeah, looking back, it was such a good team that we should have got promoted that year for sure. And then summer came, a lot of those players left, some of them on loan. Jacob Murphy, he went back, Adam Armstrong went back, and James Madison was sold, and a lot of the top players from that group moved on, and unfortunately, you know, off-field problems are well documented. Everyone knows kind of where the club was at that point in time. So the second year, we just weren't nearly as good, to be honest. And I had a crazy year. The diagnosis in December. I then had a really bad concussion / leg injury. We were playing Shrewsbury away, and I got knocked out for about 15 minutes. 2 minutes into the game, it was crazy time. So that kind of actually ended my season in March. So that season was really tough for me from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint, the injuries, and obviously not being able to help on the pitch. And after that year, I kind of needed a fresh start. And that's kind of part of the reason why I went up to play in Scotland at Motherwell. But no, Coventry, it's kind of split into the two. When Tony Mowbray was there in that first group, the first 6 months, and then that following season, I kind of look at it as two different experiences. Yeah. That second season, the club went through 4 different managers. It opened my eyes to the business side of football, and you know, for me, further down the road when I go into coaching, it really opened my eyes to the type of people you need at a football club to be successful. But I look back on that first 6 months or so with incredible memories.
Good. Stanners there. Stanners 10. Mr. Craig Stanley. Play up, you Sky Blues. Big Cov fan. I talked to Stanners last week. Craig, I don't know if have you ever met Craig before?
Don't think so, no.
Craig, or come across him. Craig played, he's type 1 as well, and he played for sort of Bristol Rovers. I don't know that many clubs. I mean, he played a lot. He played 15 years pro in England, so he's had a bit of a career as well. We had a good chat last week, and he's a big Cov fan. If you couldn't tell, I don't know how many times I put play you Sky Blues on here, but big Cov fan. Then you've got somebody having a go here about your table tennis skills, Andy. Attaboy Roses, your table tennis is rubbish. Patrick.
No, my table tennis is my hidden talent. I haven't found anyone to do yet, so I don't know who that is. They've definitely lost.
Then you've got another favourite from your Motherwell days. So you were class at Motherwell. So you've had a good time there, clearly. So I want you to, if you can, name your clubs. I don't think you've had as many as Mr. Craig Stanley has had, but name your clubs, and then where do you think you've enjoyed it the most and been playing your best?
Oh, that's a great question, Matt. Well, quick history. I went through the Bristol City Youth Team Academy. When I was 18, I had the chance to go to America to a school called UCLA. It was an incredible football program, and 4 years there. I got my degree in sociology. It was living in Los Angeles for 4 years was not hard to do. That was a lot of fun. And from there,
I bet it was.
From there, I got drafted into the MLS. So I've spent 4 years with Seattle Sounders. That was my first professional club. From there to Coventry, from Coventry to Motherwell, and now, Motherwell to Vancouver. And I've been with the Whitecaps for just over a year now. So, yeah, four professional clubs. It's been a great journey. Loved every minute of it. Obviously, highs and lows like everybody else. Each club has been special in its own way. Longevity-wise, Seattle, I could easily have spent my whole career there. At the time, I was 4 years in. I had a new deal offered at the end of that, and I just felt if I was 25 and if I didn't try to play in the UK, I never would. I thought if I'd signed a new deal there, then I probably would have spent my whole career in MLS. And just a part of me always wanted to play in the UK and give that a go, be closer to my mum and dad and whatnot. So, Coventry was awesome for that. Obviously, there was highs and lows. The opportunity to play with a guy like James Maddison was incredible. He was only 18 or 19 at the time, but he was actually the first player I saw when I walked in the dressing room. He was the only one in there, and he was like a skinny little kid. And I thought,
he was going to? Could you tell at that age he was going to go on to be as good as he is now?
Well, not at that moment, but as soon as we got on the training pitch, I was just like, wow, this guy is special. And obviously, other players, John Fleck was incredible to play with, Joe Cole. But Matters, you just knew he was, after one day of training with him, you almost knew he was going to be worth 50, 60 million pounds one day. He was incredible. So the opportunity to play with some really top young players was a great part of that experience. And then Motherwell was just in terms of a real team, a real unit. Like, we were all just so close. I loved living. We lived not far from Glasgow, and that was an amazing city to be part of every day. Loved the people up in Scotland. Really funny people.
Yes.
That group, we got to 2 cup finals in my first season there, which was sort of unprecedented for Motherwell. We lost to Celtic in both, but those experiences. My son was born there, and his first match when he was about 2 weeks old was the first cup semi-final against Rangers at Hampden, packed stadium. Absolutely incredible, and we won 2-0 that day. And probably one of my favourite footballing memories, having him there and just beating a club like Rangers in the semi-final of a cup was really special. So I look back on my time with Motherwell as certainly one of my favourite stops. I just made some incredible friends there. I learned so much coaching-wise there, and a real humble club. All about family, and I learned so much. I absolutely loved it, and equally so, I've been so fortunate in Vancouver. We had a tough season last year. It was a very new coaching staff, new group of players, and it was always going to be a bit of a transition. And then this pre-season was one of the best I've ever been a part of. Really well organized. We were in San Diego and we were in Portland, and both were great trips, and you could kind of sense something was really coming together. We've got a really multicultural team, South Korean, Iraqi, lots of South Americans, a couple other Europeans, and it's just a really fun group to be part of. So fingers crossed we can get back on the pitch as soon as possible. So our last game, like I said, against the Galaxy was an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, you've got a couple more fans on here now, Andy.
I think these are just my mates now.
Or that, mate. Or that. They're all jumping on, pretending they're in the Andy Rose fan club.
Yeah, no, they're definitely not.
There's somebody asking you how much do you miss Motherwell, though? Up the well?
Yeah, no, like I said, it was easily one of my favourite times in football. 18 months there, and lifelong friends, amazing memories, those cup finals. Yeah, the one regret I have, especially from my first year there, again, played with some great players who have since moved on to higher levels, and I really felt we could have achieved a little bit more league-wise. We were flying, we were top 3 or top 4 for the first half of the season. We dropped off a little bit towards the end and ended just outside the top 6. But man, I loved Scotland, I loved Glasgow. And it was just such a great time in my life.
So this leads into this very nicely. So who's the best player you've played with, and the best player you've played against?
Best player I've played, would be hard to pick one. I've been really fortunate to play with
give us a handful then. Go on, I'll let you have a handful.
In Seattle, I played with Clint Dempsey and Obafemi Martins, who obviously for you guys probably knowing Oba from his Newcastle United days, he came to MLS and was just a superstar. He was so much fun to play with, so energetic. The best feeling I've had in football is when you have a striker on your team that you go into every match knowing that he's probably going to score, or at least as a team you're going to score. It's a great feeling. Having him on the pitch was he was special.
He's lethal, isn't he? Lethal.
He was lightning quick and incredible left foot. And that time he was great. He was probably the best player in MLS at the time. That year, 2014, we won the Supporter Shield, which is the MLS equivalent of winning the league. We had ended with the highest points total, and then we won the US Open Cup, which would be the equivalent of the FA Cup. So him and Dempsey together were really special. We kind of played a 4-4-2 with those two up front, and it was almost like they shared one mind. They were just they were a lot of fun to play with. The one with the most potential was definitely James Maddison, like we talked about. You just knew, and every day watching him as a 18, 19-year-old, staying late after training and working on free kicks. It's no wonder you're seeing him score free kicks at Old Trafford and places like that now. Because he was every single day, it was just religion for him. He was out there practicing, and a lot of fun to play with. I'm so proud of where he's gone. Another young player I played with at Motherwell, who's also, I get the same feeling he could go on and achieve things like James Maddison, is a kid named David Turnbull, who in a couple of years everybody will know his name. He was just kind of coming through as I was leaving actually Motherwell, but in training and whatnot, you could just tell he was something special. Never lost the ball, and his technique is incredible. I mean, he just so comfortable in midfield, always finds his way away from pressure, and was supposed to move to Celtic in the last window. That fell through, but he's lucky for Motherwell. He's going to continue doing great things there, and will certainly one day be worth an awful lot of money. So those ones all spring to mind. Trying to think of others. Played with a guy named Mauro Rosales in Seattle as well, who, if you go to Argentina, with him, he'll be stopped at every street. I mean, everybody knows him there. Played in the Olympics for them and had an incredible career. Played for Ajax, and he was coming to the end of his career when I was coming through in Seattle. So to kind of see his professionalism and how he went about his business was really great. So yeah, those are a few the ones that I played with that that I learned a lot from and were a lot of fun.
What about against? Who springs to mind? Who's really tested you?
Against, well, I was playing centre half actually. You spent most of my career being a midfielder, and I've just started playing centre back this pre-season, and we played against Chicharito, a couple of weeks ago. Who so that was obviously the career he's had. That was a lot of fun to be tested against a player like that. But the best, my first ever goal came against LA Galaxy, and David Beckham was on the pitch. He was always my hero growing up. So, he's certainly up there. People actually, I think, forget just how good a footballer he was because of everything else he does in his life. Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, Thierry Henry, Zlatan. One of the great things about playing in MLS is you get to test yourself.
Yeah, they're coming over now, aren't they? The stars are there.
Yeah, albeit some of them obviously, came towards the end of their careers, but still the opportunity to play against them, David Villa. I think the best I'd probably give to Thierry Henry. I was in my first year in Seattle, my first year as a pro, and coming up against him, he was probably the one player I was a little bit starstruck, and yeah, that was cool.
We've had a question here saying, "Are you looking at management some point one day in the future?"
Yeah, definitely.
Not too soon though. You've still got plenty of life in those legs yet.
Yeah, no, I've just turned 30, so we'll see what happens football-wise moving on. But certainly, I've taken steps towards going into coaching. I'm currently finishing up my UEFA license with the Welsh FA, so I was supposed to be coming back in May to finish it for the week. Not sure if that's going to be postponed now with everything that's going on, but certainly something I'm looking forward to down the line. It's always kind of been my ambition to become a manager one day, so looking forward to that at some point.
So I've got a few diabetes questions now for you. So I'm going to a little bit about how you deal with it to begin with. So how do you manage it currently? What does it look like to you on a day-to-day? Are you injecting? What are you using?
Yeah, I'm still injecting pens here.
Very good. Recognise that.
Yeah, at some point I want to move on to. I was actually speaking to my endocrinologist here about moving on to the Omnipod pump just because it's wireless, which I like the sound of. So at some point I'd like to give that a go. For the time being, I'm still relatively new to all this. I'm a few years in, and the pens I think just give me total control almost. Obviously it's probably more upkeep and more maintenance, and I'm constantly checking my glucose monitor, my Freestyle Libre, probably, I don't know, 30, 40 times a day. You ever
thought about the Dexcom?
The Dexcom, when I was diagnosed...
I'm not the best at the minute, 10.3, sort that out in a minute.
I'm probably around the same, mate. When I was diagnosed, the Freestyle, I was able to get the Freestyle through the NHS. And so I have just stuck with them. I've actually done some partnerships with Abbott as well. So I've been so impressed with it. Obviously, there's minor differences between the two. I've never used the Dexcom, but my sister-in-law does, and my friend Jordan down in Seattle, he also uses it. So they've told me all the amazing things about it. The Freestyle for me, I think just because it's been with me since day one, I've just kind of a bit loyal to it. And obviously, I think every diabetic will tell you it's such an individual thing. My diabetes is probably very different to yours, and so you just need to figure out your own routine. So for right now, the Freestyle is amazing. The pens work. A normal training day for me would be wake up, go to training, have breakfast at a training ground, and I'd probably give myself about 2 units of Nova Rapid with a couple of eggs, some toast, some yogurt. Train, always have a Lucozade or a bar out at training with me. Rarely go low in training. It's happened, since pre-season. I can remember, I think once or twice it's happened that I felt a little bit low in the warm-up, so I'll have a bar and be fine.
Have you ever had one with in a game, or have you ever had to pull yourself off in any situations with a hypo?
No, I haven't. No, that's never happened. I tend to try and stay a little bit on the higher side during games. Most of our matches are 7 o'clock kickoffs in the evening, so gives me all day to kind of prepare, and I will I'll take really, really good care of it on game days. So I'll be, you know, with what I eat, I'll give myself a little bit more insulin, and I'll always stay on the lower end, so around a 4 or 5. I try to be most game days throughout the day, and then as we get closer to the match, it'll usually, with adrenaline is a huge part. I don't really get a huge spike in training, but in games I definitely do get a big adrenaline spike. So you have to factor that in. But I'll usually what happens with me is I'll start the match at about, let's say, an 8 or a 9. With adrenaline and whatnot, it'll spike up to about a 12 or a 13, and I'll come in at halftime. If it's anything above a 12, I'll usually take a little bit of insulin at halftime, probably 1 or 2 units. And then that usually brings it down to a good 7, 8 for the second half. I've only just started doing that recently. I felt comfortable enough at halftime to do that. But that's worked for me, the last few months. And then, yeah, like everyone else, I've got peaks and valleys, a lot of highs. The worst thing for me is when I wake up in the morning and I've been high all night, and doesn't happen that often, but when it does, I get so annoyed with myself.
But at the same time, you just feel rough, like you've got, like, I don't know, feel like you're dehydrated, your head's banging, and you feel slow and sluggish to get going.
Yeah, it's frustrating, mate. It's no, I'm lucky in that my job, I rely on my body so much that I have the time to look after it. If I can understand for people who have to sit in an office all day or sit at a desk, and they're focused on their work and they don't really get enough breaks throughout the day to check on it. That must be more difficult for me. I'm on the pitch for 2 hours a day, maybe a little more some days, a little less some days, and then the rest of the day I can really keep a strong focus on it. So it's still not enough like straight lines. I'm still not quite in my sweet zone often enough. There's still highs and lows, which there always will be. I'd like to manage it even better if possible. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist in that way. But no, so far, at least during games, it's never affected me.
Good. That's good to hear, because there's plenty of stories of, and I know myself, I've had to drag myself off with a hypo mid-game, and it's rare, very rare, but it does happen. But it's good that you haven't had that feeling, or you're fully aware of how to get through the game and how to get there. Do you ever find that if you go too high, that your performance, you can feel that you may be a bit leggy or a bit slower?
I have been. I mean, give me an example for you. What would too high be for you?
I think when I go above sort of 14, I start to go, do you know what? I feel a bit off. Like there's a little bit of me that goes, I'm not feeling as energetic as I could be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think
it's different for everyone as well.
Yeah, I can't really say yes, because I don't know, maybe it's just during games I'm just too focused on the match to even think about it. I think the only thing that would really affect my concentration on the game would be a low, would be if but yeah, it hasn't happened so far. I think I do a decent job of making sure I'm going to stay in that zone, and to be honest, taking the couple units at halftime, I think helps with that now, because I do remember last season a couple times I would come in at halftime, probably be at like a 12, and then go back out, and then come in after the game and be at like a 16 or 17 or something, and then just in my own head I'm just like a bit annoyed by that. I don't think I feel all that different, but I'm a bit annoyed about the whole thing. So taking those extra units at halftime, I think has definitely helped kind of combat that.
Yeah, and I do the same thing. I'm constantly adjusting as much as I can. I'm trying to hit that sweet spot of like 7 or 8 to play in. Yeah. So I'm the same. Just keep checking as much as I can. using the glucose monitors as much as possible. Do you give the physio, or does the physio get involved in any way on match day?
No, not really. They've always offered, because with my freestyle, my app, I know it's different than yours, but I wear it up here and I just scan it with my phone. So it's an app on my phone. If I had a different device, I might give it to them. So if there was a problem, I could run over and check it. But, I keep my phone in my locker during matches. And like I said, I check it literally right before I go out for the match. And I check it at halftime. And it's the first thing I do when I come back in. So, they've always got supplies, insulin and bars and sweets and whatnot, but no, it's not often I need to call on them for it.
Cool. Another question I got asked a couple of times to ask you is, what was the transition like from going from, obviously you were diagnosed in the UK, the NHS supporting you. What was that transition like from going from the UK to then, obviously, as a professional footballer, NHS supported, to then Canada, and obviously a completely different mode of healthcare, new club, new surroundings? What was that all like?
Yeah, I was really fortunate, I think, to be diagnosed in the UK, because it makes you appreciate the NHS so much. It was incredibly easy, honestly. They made it all so easy for me. Our team doctor at Coventry was all over it, and very quickly I was kind of given a crash course in how to give myself insulin and how much. And obviously, it does take time to figure out. I wanted to figure it out straight away and be back playing the next week, and it took a little bit longer than that. I think it was a couple of weeks before I was back in the squad. But it certainly made me appreciate the NHS so much. It just made everything really easy, especially with being able to get the Freestyle Libre as well. Equally so, I've been impressed with the Canadian healthcare. I think I'm fortunate that the MLS is over here in North America. The MLS is a big league, and you get taken care of really well. So our doctors and our physios are fantastic, and I obviously want to be involved in everything and figuring things out, but they're so helpful with all that. But it's been very similar. I get my same 2 Freestyle Libres. I go every couple of weeks and stock up a couple more. Freestyle Libres last 14 days. So I get 2 of them at a time. And then, I get a pack of 5 of these guys and a pack of 5 Lantis. It's all super easy, very, very similar to the NHS.
Good. Well, at least it's made it an easier transition. Was it something that you were concerned with when you moved, or did you just thought, what, we'll take it in our stride, it'll be all right, sort of thing?
Yeah, I was a bit nervous, to be honest. I was it all came about a little bit the last minute when I moved back to Vancouver, but there was definitely a chance if I was going to come back to MLS that it would be with an American club. And my sister-in-law now actually lives in London, but she obviously spent a lot of time with diabetes in America, and so I knew a little bit about the system there, which I think sounded a little bit tougher in terms of what you have to pay and the deductibles and whatnot. So that I would have been more concerned with. And at some point in my life, I'm sure I'll live in the US again. So that'll certainly have to factor into any decisions we make. But no, I knew that, when I knew it was going to be Vancouver, I kind of did a bit of research, and it felt like a fairly similar system to what I've been used to.
Which is great. I suppose it makes life easier. I wanted to ask you as well, because you've just in the last couple of years thrown in the mix of having been diagnosed with type 1. You've also become a dad. How was all of that involving, your son coming around in that sort of early stages of type 1 diabetes?
Yeah. No, he's been amazing. He's 2.5 now. We actually have another one on the way in July. A baby girl
Amazing.
coming.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, mate. So no, I mean, like, I hope they don't get it. Of course, I'm glad I'm the one that's dealing with it. You know, it's made me realize that you need support. You need a strong mindset, and you need to just kind of manage your time well. I don't even really think about life without it anymore. You know, it's become such a big part of my life that I've just kind of got on with it, and it is what it is. I try and be as positive as possible about it all. I understand it's really difficult, and I have a lot of sympathy for people when they're diagnosed, but at the same time, I've just found the best way to cope with it is to, you know, just accept it. It's part of my life, and you know, I try to make the best of it. So throwing Jack into the equation, honestly, it just makes you even more eager to manage it in the best way possible, because obviously a huge part of my day, especially at the moment, not training so much, is playing with him and hanging out with him. So yeah, it's funny. He sometimes will kind of grab the pen and pretend to give himself insulin, just because he sees me do it so much. But no, it hasn't made any real difference.
Quality. No, it's good. It's good to hear, mate. And I've only really got one more question for you, and then I'll leave you in peace to get on, because it is early in the morning there, and obviously it's late in the day here, so you've got plenty of the day hopefully ahead of you.
Yeah.
Just the final thing was just what would you say to any young footballer? Doesn't necessarily the young footballer, and then the young footballer with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, I think the number one thing from my experience growing up, I was up until, you know, maybe when I was really young, I was one of the better players on my team. But when I turned like 14, 15, all the way up until I was 18, I was never like the best player on the team, especially at Bristol City. We had England under 17s and Welsh under 21s, or, you know, throughout the academy system. If you had chosen one player from that group that would go on and have a career in the game, I don't think many people would have picked me. And I think that's a great lesson for young players, is that it doesn't really matter where you are at that point in time if you have the right attitude. And certainly, I think for me, diabetes has taught me even more how important it is to have the right attitude and to take the best possible care of yourself. I think the biggest thing is that you're enjoying football. You have to have fun with it. There haven't been too many times in my life that I haven't had fun with it, but there has been a couple times, and you need a good support system around you to get through that. But as long as you're enjoying the game, you're having fun, you work incredibly hard, it doesn't really matter how talented you are and all that. I think at some point in time that all takes the back seat almost, and it just matters how mentally tough you are, how hard you're willing to work, how far you're willing to take it, and what kind of care you take of yourself day in, day out. And it is that it's every single day. You know, you can't really take too many days off. You have to be just so prepared, similar to when you're diagnosed with diabetes, that you take it on every single day and you take the best possible care of yourself, and you just do as well as you can. I think if you have a good attitude, then a lot of those players will be the ones that make it. That certainly was the case for me.
Perfect advice to end on, that is, mate. Can't argue with that. Mental, the mindset, positivity, work hard. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate, with what I know from the people that are pros now that I've spoken to. I couldn't agree any more with you. So I just want to say a massive thank you, mate, for coming on and letting me pose you some questions for an hour. I'm sure lots of people will get a lot out of that. I hope we'll make the video available to people as well to see it. But yeah, thanks very much. Good luck with everything that you're doing at the moment, and obviously good luck with how things are and all that sort of stuff in terms of where we are with coronavirus, etc. Hopefully the season comes back sooner rather than later. Keep the little man happy as well, running around after him for a little while longer.
Yeah.
And and I'll catch up with you soon, because there'll be plenty of stuff hopefully that certainly while we're quiet, that hopefully we can link up on and have a think about for the future. But thanks very much, mate. Really appreciate it, and have a good day.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. At some point, we'll get on the pitch together as well. And
mate,
mate.
That'd be class, mate. We'll in the future we'll sort that, definitely.
Awesome, mate. All right, good to hear from you, mate.
Nice one, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, pal.